Welcome back to Beyond the Headline, everyone, where we discuss the realities of launching, scaling, and investing in a business. I'm really excited you're here today because I'm joined by Saman Rahmanian, the founder of Managed by Q. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you, Jenna. Unfortunately, my co-founder, Dan, couldn't make it, but I'm excited to be here.
I'd love to have you start out, Saman, just diving into how Managed by Q works and the enormous pain point you guys are solving for companies.
Sure. The fundamental problem that we're addressing is that it takes a lot of work to run a physical space. Offices and companies that run in offices have to put a lot of work and dedicate a lot of energy to thinking about how to run the office space. It starts with things like making sure that the office space is clean, that it's maintained well, that the supplies are always stocked, that there's orange juice in the fridge, that there's whiteboard markers in your conference rooms. Very simple, mundane tasks, but they take a lot of time and energy away from you running the business. So what Q does is we fundamentally help you with your what we call space operations. We refer to it as what we're building as an operating system for the physical space. And we help you with some of those tasks that are required to run your office space, like cleaning, maintenance, and supplies.
Very cool. So as I was just sharing with you, I learned about Managed by Q a few months ago and was very fascinated with the solution you're providing. And then once I learned about your culture, I realized that's the real distinguishing point about Managed by Q. Can you introduce us to the reason that everybody cleans?
Sure, and it's a term that Dan, my co-founder, he brought up, which I think is a very good way to summarize how we think at Q. One of the fundamental principles that Dan and I wanted to set in our company is that we wanted to make sure that everybody, whether you're an engineer, whether you work in operations, or whether you're a cleaner or a handyman, everybody gets the same type of treatment and everybody gets the same experience. And that goes back to making sure that everybody at Q has the same type of benefits, the same type of expectations that they can have with being employed at Q. So at Q, everybody, we share the same medical benefits. We're even on the same payroll system. We're right now working on stock option program for our cleaners and handyman. And the reason that everybody cleans is it's for one, it's something that literally everybody has to clean, when they join the company, and it's first to understand the work that that the majority of our employees do, and to feel that firsthand of how it works. And that's tremendously important, not only to make sure that you really know what the experience is and you can build better products for them, but then also it grounds you and sets you on the same level and makes sure that nobody is too good to clean. And in the early days, Dan and I cleaned a lot. I haven't been on a clean a few months now, so it's my time again to go into the field. But everybody at Q has to clean to make sure that you really understand what everybody does at Q.
It looks like you guys are having a lot of fun doing it too.
Yeah, we joke around it. Dan and I, we refer to it as a spiritual act. It's the one thing that's it's very simple. That's not true. I say it's very simple because it's sort of binary.
You can measure it.
You can measure it, yeah. In that part, it's simple. It's actually tremendously difficult to do right, but it's something that is a good change to the other things that we do at the company, where a lot of decisions are made where there's no clear expectation or a clear decision in mind. Whereas when it comes to cleaning an office space, it's a binary act. You either do it well or you don't. So that's something that I think a lot of people enjoy, to just have that clarity.
As you mentioned, the number of decisions you have to make as a founder, and oftentimes you don't know how they're going to turn out. One decision that Dan and you made from the start is that this would be your culture and that everybody who came on the team would have a chance to be on the corporate team, would have benefits, would be paid well and what they deserve. Why was that so important to you? And you could have gone the other route and had a whole bunch of freelancers who you didn't have to worry about.
Totally. I think that's where it's important to have a co-founder that, like where all co-founders share the same, where they have like the same moral compass. I think Dan and I, to us, it seemed both just natural to make sure that if we have an office that's open not just to people that work in the office, but also to people that work in the field. One of the first things that we actually used to talk about and romanticize at the time when we didn't have an office yet, we were saying like we wanted to make sure that we wanted to dedicate a big portion of our office space to field operators, and field operators are the term that we use for operators that work in the field. And at that time, we had a windowless office that was the size roughly of this phone box here, phone booth. So at that time, we didn't really have that be a reality. But now, in our office space, we have a little bit more space now, and so we actually have one area that has workstations with computers where operators can just drop in during their sessions. They can print homework for their kids, and they can use it to surf the web. And it's just one way for us to make sure that the company feels very united. And it just felt it was the right thing to do. So I don't think it was like any other conscious decision behind that, other than having similar, I think, like standards of how we wanted to build the company.
Tell us about your operational assemblies.
Oh yeah, our operator assemblies. Our first one was it was 7 people around the desk. So that was our first operator assembly. And the reason we had an assembly was we wanted to bring the people that we wouldn't see on a daily basis into the room, so we could catch up with them and see how things are going, get feedback from them in real life and in person. And that's where like the idea of the operator assemblies was born. And it was interesting because in the early days, so you might know, in the first few months of starting the business, we actually were using subcontracting companies to provide us with their labor. And it was definitely interesting, the dynamic, because initially, we had these operator assemblies with people that weren't actually our employees, and we were very. We cared a lot about like how we treat them, and we wanted to make sure that they're like treated really well, and it created sort of like an interesting dynamic between like us and the partner companies, where it just seemed like like all the folks that were cleaning actually wanted to work directly for Q. So it was definitely a little interesting. And then it was actually through the operator assemblies that we realized more and more that what we were trying to build, and if we wanted to have the vision of actually being one unified company, there was no way that we could continue using subcontractors anymore. And then we started moving towards fully employing everyone. And now the operator assemblies are great because everybody works actually at Q. We can it's a time where we can celebrate the best successes. We can reward the people for their greatest performances. We highlight operators. We use it as a way to train operators of new products that we've just launched, or new if there's like new apps that we're releasing to the operators. So it becomes a little bit like a mini conference, and just like a time where just everybody that doesn't really see each other like on a day-to-day basis gets to see them. Moving forward, we actually like now trying to integrate more and more operator families also, so it becomes a big community event. They're exciting. They're very energizing.
Was everyone having the Q tattoos? I love
Yeah,
those.
the the Q tattoos. That's right. Yeah, so they would come off. Don't worry. Yeah.
When you think of the first assembly that was 7 people, and you think of now, what are you most proud of?
Um, I think in the early days, I think in the early days, you worry a lot about setting the precedent and making sure that the you set the train into the right direction. And in the early days, it was a lot about like like making sure that like the train is heading like the compass is right. I think that the thing that everybody here at Q is very proud of is that we have a running train, and we feel like the direction is in the right direction, and but now it's going just much faster. I think I don't know if that was too abstract, but I think in the early days, yeah, you think a lot about like what it could be, and then like when like as weeks and months pass, like you see more and more of the early visions come to life and like also like change and like evolve over time. I think that's um, it's very humbling, and it's sort of like seeing a child grow up. It feels yeah, it comes with a lot of the same feelings like of seeing like a baby grow up to maybe like a toddler.
I'm glad you mentioned that the train is now going in the direction that you wanted to go and at a much faster speed. Because on the outside, Managed by Q has a great story. The press, your investors, your customers love you. You've raised a lot of capital. But what's the reality been like of launching and scaling this business?
Oh yeah, much less glamorous. It's a lot of grueling hard work. It's I mean, our business is operationally and logistically very complex.
Hmm.
There's a lot of very, very complex and difficult uh, challenges that we have to solve, and those challenges haven't been solved in the way that we're looking at them like ever before. So there really isn't any blueprint for us for this is how you have to set up and like how you have to set up business. This is how you set up like your technology, the operations. So a lot of tough challenges that we have to face every day. I think one of the things the team's so great is that the team has a ton of grit. And it's really like that grit that is required to actually succeed in this business, because it is not something that you can just flip on and it just runs. It's a lot of very, very small details, and it's a lot of execution. And so yeah, it's a lot of hard hours, hard work. Yeah, it's definitely yeah, it's very much heads down.
How do you approach every day not having that blueprint?
Yeah, it's tough. You have a lot of conversations of what that could be, and it evolves over time. And I mean, fundamentally, I think the people that join Q and people that join early stage companies, I think generally are the type of people that enjoy this freedom and like the uncertainty of not knowing what the blueprint is. Because if you do know what the solution is, then there is a certain I think there's a certain charm that's gone. So I think it just requires a different type of people, and like we're lucky that we have a lot of those people recruited to work here at Q and work on those problems.
When you do think of the blueprint that you guys want to create with a big Q on it, what do you see in the next couple of years? What are your goals?
Yeah, I mean, I think Q has we're in the we're in a pretty, I think, fortunate position to have a very large operational and business vision that we want to accomplish. And being able to run the physical space in a systemized, organized way is a very complex challenge. And then the second part of that is the way we approach it is we have the ability to affect the lives of a lot of people. Um, and I think when I think of Q, I sort of like have like a split, I guess, like vision. On the one side, I see sort of like the Jetsons and like things just like,
Yes.
like you're, like there's you push something there and then suddenly like, like something comes and flies in and like brings you your supplies. And just like, somebody like comes into your office and like organizes your kitchen. And so there's this. And then on the other side, I see sort of like this enormous opportunity for a community building like vision where Q, I think like the offices, I think of Q less of a as a corporate office, but more as a center where we can just have like we can sort of like start the beginning of like community life, and and I think it's those two different parallel I think like visions that like I see. So yeah, on the one side I see like the huge amounts of technology and innovation that we can like put out and make the lives of a lot of people easier, and on the other side we can actually have a enormous positive effect on the lives of the people that work at Q.
In addition to that, you're also having an enormous effect on the customers that you're working with. And one of the things I admire most about you guys, it really seems like you partner with them. You're not a service provider. There's been so many posts on social media of startups in the area like Bond Street saying how much they love working with you guys.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's great. And we've I mean, Dan and I, we used to work in startups
Mm-hmm.
before, so we were in that scene. So we knew, and I think we knew that those customers really well, and like that's where it started. Like we started with managing offices, managing startups that we knew, and like from there we grew. Like in terms of like now we have a lot of like much larger businesses than just startups. But I think it was understanding what the standards are from our customers' perspectives, because we were essentially like we were the customers ourselves. So I think like from that sense, we probably had a pretty good idea of like what the level of service and how it should be, what the level of service should be. Um, and the other thing that we do that might have that probably like affects like the positive perception that we have is we at Q we talk a lot about creating touch points, and touch points are essentially positive reminders that you exist. And one of the things that we noticed and we had a hypothesis around is that many people are not satisfied with their service companies, like for example, like their cleaning, not because necessarily the service is always that bad, but the only times that an office manager, for example, would think about the cleaning company would be if the job was not done right. And so that's a negative touch point. So what we wanted to make sure is that we create a lot of these positive touch points for people to know that you were here. And there's a lot of opportunities when you're in the office space to make sure that as you pay attention to detail, that the office employees, the office manager know that you've come and like you've done your work. So an example is like when we start service, we deep clean an office from like top to bottom, and we greet every employee with a branded water bottle that just welcomes them to their new space at Q. And then every time one of our operators cleans an employee's desk, we actually there's a term called for it. We knoll items on a desk, which is basically arranging every item, making it straight and 90 degrees to the edges of the surface. And it's just those little like those attentions to details where I think we pay a lot of attention to them to that, and so a lot of people I think are aware of us and our presence, even if they don't see us, because we often come in the middle of a night and then we just like leave. We leave these touch points. So yeah, it's great to hear.
As you reflect on everything that's happened so far, it's certainly been very exciting. What was the defining moment for you where you knew, all right, we're on to something?
I think that the defining moment I think was before we launched, and that was 2 or 3 months before we actually launched. So Dan and I initially wanted to build Q for residential buildings, and that's where we saw initially the problem. And then quickly after talking to condo boards and co-op boards who would have been our customers, we pivoted away to offices. And what we did is we set up meetings with 25 companies, and we showed them a PDF of what the service would look like. And we had built a sign-up page where those companies could then sign up for the service 3 months in advance, because we hadn't built it at that time. So, and we talked to 25 offices, and 20 of them signed up with their credit cards. So we definitely, yeah, it was a pretty good conversion rate. So it was probably right after that we, well, it was definitely actually at that time when we realized that we're actually solving a real world problem, and people see value in the type of solution that we have to offer.
Whether it was your customers, your investors, family, or friends, who were some individuals for you in particularly who really helped shape the past couple of years?
It's probably a lot. My wife would probably want me to say my wife, and I think professionally, I think personally I've grown most. I think professionally, like at my job previous to Q, and I was a partner at Prehype, together with Dan and Hendrik Verdelin, who is a managing partner at Prehype. Prehype was or is a venture development firm, essentially an external incubator for companies, where big corporations come to Prehype and with an initial idea of what they want to validate as a new business opportunity, and then Prehype would validate that by building a startup. And that approach required us to be very critical when it came to business ideas, and to not only be able to think about business ideas in a critical way, but also to figure out what is the best way for you to validate those and to actually like launch something. I think professionally, like those were probably like the most important ones that I've sort of like prepared myself, at least personally, for this journey. But as much as you can prepare for it, it's not fully. You can never be fully prepared.
What surprised you the most?
I think the level of. I think the team is just on a everyday just surprises me on how much and how much further they're taking the vision. Like like we had like a inkling of what we wanted to do, and like the team is really like the ones that actually bring it to life, and like in ways that neither Dan or I could have ever thought. And I think it just becomes it's definitely very it's an interesting moment to just see like where like you just put like all the trust in your team, and like the team just like takes it further and further. I think that just makes it like, I mean initially I think like not so much surprising, but I guess like becomes like very revealing moment, which is great.
What's your favorite part about your team, if you could choose one?
If I could choose one, I don't know. A lot of people wear the Q shirt, which I love. So maybe that's what that, and like a lot of people, like you have cleaning operators and you have engineers wearing the same shirts. A lot of times, I think that's I like that part, because it just like shows sort of like that it's one company.
Well, it's undeniable that the culture Dan and you have built, and now you said your team completely permeates, is distinguishing you guys. If we were to fast forward 5 years and there was a huge cover story coming out about Managed by Q, what would the headline be, and what photo do you want to be on the cover?
5 years is a very long time. We've just been in business for just over a year, so it's very hard to predict. But I would probably want to see, in terms of photo, it'll probably be a Q. I don't know, maybe a cube made out of thousands of people that are working at Q, like that we're affecting in their day-to-day lives. I don't know. It would probably be something around like the Jetsons part of like how we're making like the lives of the customers better, or it would be a picture that would speak to the notion of us creating a lot of jobs and making people's lives better. I don't know what the photo for that would be.
It'll be a dual feature, so you can have both of those things. And then I think we should have everybody with the Q tattoos, but I think they should be permanent. So I think if you're going to come in, you got to go all in.
Permanent Q tattoos. That's probably the picture. Yeah.
Saman, before we go, I'd love to chat for just a couple of minutes about life. When you don't have your co-founder hat on and you're at home with your family or with your friends, what do you love to do on the weekends?
So I have 2 kids, and I have a third one coming on the way. So pretty much any time that I spend not working on Q, I spend time with my family. And I mean, I know it's a boring answer, but it really is like you have to be when you run a company, and like when you just like are so invested in like the success of a company, like there's very little time that you have for other things. And so any time that I get to spend on a weekend not working, I spend them with my two kids. Yeah.
Who do you admire most, whether or not you know them?
Who do I admire most? I do admire my kids a lot.
That's a good one. You got to tell my parents to say that.
I know. It's actually funny because they do put things into perspective for me a lot of times. And it's funny because I actually like have come into the habit of now talking about day-to-day problems that we have at Q with my kids.
No way. How old are they?
So my daughter is just turning 4, so she's and my son is 2. So there's a level of wisdom that they have, which is pretty astounding. But yeah, I've sort of made it my mission into sort of like looping them into the entrepreneurial challenges that come up, and they come up with like pretty good solutions a lot of times. So
I love that. You said you're hiring. There you go. It's free labor.
They join every operator assembly with my wife. So
last question, Swan, and this one's probably the most important one. If you were an ice cream flavor, what flavor would you be?
Oh wow. So interesting. I am Persian, and Persians do like pistachios. So it'll probably be like a pistachio flavored ice cream. Yeah, either that or rose water. Persians also like rose water. So maybe that's the one.
That's the perfect way to end it. And before we go, I really want to tell you how much I admire your team for the culture that you've built. For individuals who want to use Managed by Q as a service, who are interested in joining your team, how can they reach out to you and stay up to date?
Sure. Well, I think the best is to go to the website managedbyq.com. There is, for people that would like to use our services, they can click on a Get Started button, and from there they can receive an estimate of how much it would cost for us to manage them. And for people, of course, we have a careers page. If anybody ever feels like they're not getting a response quick enough when they've just applied for a job, or they feel like they want to apply for a job that is not listed, just write an email to hello@managedbyq.com, and Dan and myself see those emails. So just send them along that address, and like we'll make sure you get a response pretty quickly.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Saman.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.